Hello, welcome to another edition of Razorwire. Now today, we are revisiting the wonderful world of cybersecurity awareness or security awareness or awareness training. How do we deal with various different ways to introduce security to maybe the people within our organization who are not quite as used to it as we are? How do we train them? How do we educate them? What are the pitfalls? What are the good points? What are the bad points? And what are the tips and tricks of the trade? Why don't you follow me on this journey, even rather, where we investigate that with two very special guests. And today, in order to discuss the wonders of security awareness training, I have two of the best people in the profession. You've seen them all around LinkedIn. You've seen them discuss it before, and they have agreed to come on this small podcast. I have Jemma and Amy. You've seen them before, but let's let them introduce themselves. Who wants to go first? Let's go with Jemma. Go on, Jemma.
Hello. Yes, I'm Jemma, founder of CultureGem, security, behaviour and culture change specialist, and the founder of the first fully accessible security awareness and compliance training platform.
Fantastic. And Amy?
Hi, I am Amy. I am the CEO of the Cyber Escape Room company. So we do interactive, immersive security awareness training.
Fantastic. Absolute pleasure to have you both on board. So, security awareness training, one of the cornerstones of information security, and it has been for a long, long time. You know, we have governance, where we have the policies, we have the procedures, we have the risk-based approach to things, and so on and so forth. And then you have your defense in depth stack, where your tech defenses are, and so on and so forth. But I think it's a universal agreement from, I would say, 99.9% of the InfoSec community that, in actual honesty, security awareness is probably one of the most important pieces. The others are important. We're not taking away from what those are there to do. But let's be honest, you know, most of the security issues that we see tend to come in from some element of the human factor, be it they've clicked on something they shouldn't have clicked on, or they're doing something nefarious, or maybe one of their colleagues is doing something they shouldn't do, and so on and so forth. Let's kick it all off. Well, what does security awareness mean to you from a InfoSec aspect?
It's probably one of the most important aspects, like you said, but I think it's also one of the most under-budgeted for. People like to do, you know, shiny, blinky box, here's a new piece of technology, let's implement that because that'll save us all. When actually, just getting one of us in to come and talk to some people and think about behavioural changes rather than what technological changes would actually have a much greater impact on your overall organisational security.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I was going to say exactly the same thing. I think something like 10% of IT budgets are spent on cyber and less than 1% is spent on humans or human interventions. If you look at like the stats that are out there around what percentage of incidents are caused by humans, it used to be like 5 years ago, it was like 86%, and now it's 95%. So that shows that security awareness, as it's done today, and the blinky box nonsense doesn't actually work, and you're focusing your efforts in completely the wrong place.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, security, I mean, since I'm the old man of the group, you know, I've been around for sort of nearly 30 years in this industry, and I have seen security awareness go through a number of different transitions over the years. It seems to have come kind of full circle now, or it seems to be coming full circle. Back in the day when I first started out and got to grips with kind of that InfoSec function, it was trainer-led. You know, you went in, you did groups of people around the organization, be it you did finance one day or, you know, marketing the next day, and so on and so forth. And the delivery of the training was very different, because back then a lot of the risks were obviously very different from what they are today. Then we went through what I lovingly term as the CBT era, which lasted for years, you know, where you would get that kind of really boring training course that never changed, it never updated. You normally would go out to a provider and get that purchased and send it off to your staff and say, look, do this by a certain date or you'll get in trouble. And that's kind of been the de facto method of kind of delivery now for what must be a good 15 years, probably more. Is that kind of in line with the history from your perspective as well, or have I missed anything?
No, I would agree with what you've said.
Yeah, I think that is pretty much it. But I am trying to change that single-handedly by getting everyone back together.
But this is a good point. I mean, some of the best training you'll ever do is where you get groups of people who work together on a problem. You know, you give them the training, you give them the talk, and then you set them, some kind of task or some kind of activity, which can then kind of reinforce really what you're saying. Is that kind of where we are at the moment? Are you seeing a migration from that CBT, oh my God, Susan and Dave haven't done it again, people moaning about it, why do I? Because, I mean, let's face it, with the CBT era, it was quite tough, because if you worked for like a finance institution, not only would you have to obviously do the security training, but you'd have to do the fraud training, you'd have to do, the whistleblower training. There's a million different courses that you have to do and have to review on an annual basis. Do you feel that there's a lot of fatigue around security awareness that we need to change in the industry? What are your thoughts on kind of where we are today before we leap into the future?
I think there's definite training fatigue. Yeah, like you said, there's not just security awareness training you've got to do, it's all the other training as well. So how does the security team make their stuff stand out? I think we're getting a better understanding in the security world of how people learn. So thinking about instead of doing it all in one go, which is what traditionally we've been doing, like here's a course, you do it this year, tick the box, right, and then you just repeat it again next year. Instead of doing that, I think we're seeing a lot more stuff coming out where it's like bite-sized bits of learning. I know Vivida are currently working on something that looks like Instagram Reels, to try and put security awareness training on your mobile phone rather than on your laptop, because most people are looking at the phone all the time rather than the laptop. I think there's a lot more stuff that's like in the workflow style training. So stuff like SoSafe, where if you send an email to someone you shouldn't have sent it to, it'll pop up and give you some like accurate training in the moment. So yeah, I think we're getting a bit of a better understanding of how people learn. And I think with the attention spans changing, particularly like I always call it the TikTok generation, where people can't concentrate for more than about 30 seconds. I think it's important that we kind of play into that.
I think that's a great point. We are changing as a species with the way that we consume our technology, and we have to alter how it was done before.
Yeah, I think the attention span thing has always been the case. Like back when I worked in marketing, which is what I was doing before I was in cyber, you had 3 seconds to engage someone, and that's what social media, Facebook classed as a view was 3 seconds. Like if you stop scrolling, and that could be a sneeze or whatever it is, but if you stop scrolling, you've viewed for 3 seconds. So you've got that 3 seconds to engage someone. So 20 minutes of annual training is never going to sink. It's never going to land well. Like the analogy I always give is if I drove my car for 20 minutes a year, I wouldn't be a safe driver. I would be someone who was capable from getting from A to B. But you don't necessarily know how many kids I've hit on the way, how many dogs are hanging off the back of my car. I've done the journey, but you don't know anything from that. So the continual reinforcement, like the TikToks and the short snippets of information, is really vital. And that's what we did at CultureGem as well, was to do micro courses where it's little bits of information that you bundle together, or you drip feed throughout the whole year. And what Amy was saying around like understanding how people learn, I used to teach life skills, used to teach adults with learning difficulties, and I would do an individual learning plan for all of those people. And it was really, really difficult, really, really time consuming to do that. And there are also nuances of people's brains that I could never foresee that were always going to be a wild card. How people learn is really, really important. And that's why we've done what we've done at CultureGem, where we give everyone the choice of how they want to learn. So you shape your learning around you. The training in a room is not necessarily a comfortable situation, and it's really expensive as well. So it doesn't scale that well in terms of what they used to do ahead of when they then brought in e-learning. But what companies have done now is they know they've got to do something. So they've bought a stack it high, sell it cheap bit of nonsense and said, well, we'll use that and we'll be able to get everyone trained in no time at all. But that's not the goal. That's ticking a box, as Amy said. That's just getting it done. That's not changing anything.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points there that were interesting. So comparing it to marketing, I think that's exactly how we should be thinking about security awareness, because marketing, if you think about it, McDonald's, they don't just put one advert on and then expect you to know about them for the rest of the year. They've got an advert all over the place all the time. Like, you switch the radio on, it's McDonald's. You put the TV on, there's McDonald's. It's like everywhere on YouTube or whatever, there's always adverts popping up there. So I think that kind of messaging via osmosis is how I kind of phrase it. Giving people information in different formats, in whether it's, you might do an event, we might just put posters around the office, but just making it visible all the time. I think that's super important. And then the second thing that you said, Jem, about ticking boxes and you're not changing anything. Yeah, so what a lot of people are doing is they're doing security awareness training for compliance, but they're not actually doing anything around the culture. They're hitting the compliance metrics, brilliant, but the actual culture of the organisation is still inherently insecure.
You very rarely hit those compliance metrics year on year, because you'll get it the first year and then people have seen it. And then you have to do something different, because you really, really struggle to do the repeat training, get people to do it. Like, I've worked with companies where they've hit their 80%, which is a nonsense metric anyway. If 80% of people have scored 80%, doesn't mean anything. It's not written down anywhere that that's what you're supposed to do. And then the next year, they can't get that 80% of people to do it because they've already done the training. And they know it's terrible. So the knowledge retention isn't there, because you just roll out the same old crap every year. But the threats don't stay stagnant. The threats change. So you have to do something different every year, and you have to make it engaging enough for people to come back and do their refresher training.
I think one of the issues that I see as well is that lots of training focuses on what the impact is on the business. If I work in a business, I don't really give a fuck. I'm not being funny. Like, I can guarantee that when I worked at several of my past organisations, I think I've said this to you before, when we used to get told, if you get phished, then there could be a ransomware attack. And I'd be thinking, fucking brilliant. I'll get like a week off work while you sort that shit out. Fantastic. Like, can I click on more things? Where was the consequence for me?
Yeah.
There isn't one there. But if you're telling me, if you don't put 2FA on, then someone's going to clear your bank account out, I'm a bit more likely to listen to that, because it's personal to me and it's impacting me. People don't understand, or a lot of security awareness training doesn't understand people's motivations.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there with that one. Yeah, I mean, let's go back to the compliance thing. I mean, I've been a QSA now for God knows how many years. I'm probably one of the oldest QSAs in the UK. I'm not joking. And I've seen a lot of what you've described. The fatigue you get with computer-based training, people just point blank refusing to do it. I did it once already. Why do I have to do it again? It's the same crap every single time. It's the same questions that I get asked every single. Why bother doing it? And weirdly enough, is something interesting. Information security people are some of the worst at finishing and doing their security training.
They know it all. They don't need to, because they already know everything.
Well, this is it,
I think that's an issue, though, isn't it? Because we give everyone the same awareness training, so everyone gets the same thing.
Know your audience.
The development team probably needs something pretty fucking different to the finance team, because the threats that are facing the finance team are not the same as the threats that are facing the dev team. So the dev team need to be thinking about secure by design. The finance team needs to be probably focusing more on like invoice fraud.
Yeah, and phishing, whaling, for instance, finance departments are usually the first ones that are hit, along with, sort of VIPs or high-end people within an organization where there's a place to get a foothold, especially administrators. How you facilitate, security awareness training for a group of IT administrators versus what you're going to be doing with, say, marketing or finance is going to be very different. I mean, there is a little baseline. Obviously, everybody should be there to spot phishing and what have you. It's useful to do that. Nowadays, there's quite a big thing on sort of phishing training through kind of tests. It's almost like a little phishing pen test, really. You send out a group of phishing mails over a period of time for an organization. We do it for a number of people and see kind of how many people click on it, how many people don't. And it's just making sure that you don't vilify people for failing it. you then educate them. But it does get really, really boring really, really quickly.
And you can make it say whatever you want it to say.
Yeah.
I can just set a fish up and get whatever results you want me to get.
Mm.
And it's literally pointless as well, because it doesn't matter if one person clicks on it or 100 people click on it. If one person clicks on it, that's it. Then the company's failed the phishing test.
Yeah.
But when people are trying to get their metrics down to 0%, like Jem said, you can edit the phishing assessment to be as easy as you like, so no one ever clicks on it.
But we're also training bad behaviours into people through phishing simulations. And I know you've said this before, Amy. I've heard you say this a million times, that you're told in an organisation not to tell your peers or the person sat next to you that that's a phishing test, right? Because they want to try and test people or gamify it, which is exactly what we don't want to do to change behaviour and culture. We want people to talk about, look, have you seen this phishing email? I saw it because of this. So you're actually training negative behaviours into someone through a phishing simulation.
Yeah, that's why what we do is group-based, because it gets people talking and sharing ideas.
Absolutely. I want to go over how kind of you do it, Amy, in a second. But one thing I want to quickly reverse back to and explore is something very interesting here. It's like, why should I give a fuck? Why should I care about the organisation? Do you think that view is more prevalent today and more associated with the younger generation, or do you think it's prevalent for all? Because the way that we work is also, and this is kind of going into the culture thing, which I know both of you are really sort of big on as well. We've discussed it before. How do you kind of deliver training and support that through making people actually care? You mentioned, obviously, you can kind of put in training on how to spot things for their own life. I've run similar kind of programs when I've been a CISO. It's like, ask security a question. You're not going to get vilified for it. And you do get a lot of people who'll message you and say, oh, my aunt or my dad has just gotten a call from an Indian call center saying that they're Microsoft and so on and so forth. And I find quite effective ways to get people to kind of accept training and ongoing awareness is by helping them out and saying, okay, you've had this problem, this is how you spot it, this is what you need to be careful of. Should we be doing more of that related to people's personal lives as part of this process? Do you think that would drive higher adoption? Do you think people would accept it more? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for definite. So if you're building security into people's lives, then they're going to naturally bring that into work as well. So if you're teaching people how to be secure at home, so I know how to protect my own social media account, my own bank account, all that kind of thing, because they're the things that matter to me. Because I'm now just doing those behaviors naturally, then I'll bring that into work. So you will see that your organization becomes more secure off the back of doing that.
It's interesting as well, because not only do you get the benefits from the security awareness, you also sort of like, you're almost kind of helping yourself out in many respects, because people start to trust you a little bit more. They don't see you as the evil information security professional that ruins and wastes their life by making them have things like pen tests. If you can sort of like help somebody within their own life, especially with some of the dangers that you get out there today. I mean, one of the things that I've done with one of my customers is we implemented. There's a guy on YouTube who does he baits the scammers. Like, he puts on a voice thing that makes him sound like an old lady, and he just wastes their time. And kind of, we've used stuff like that before, and it kind of gives people a bit of a laugh to see what it actually sounds like when people do this kind of thing in a more fun way than just kind of like, well, this is the scary thing. You could have your stuff nicked.
I think I'm sure it was O2 that have built an AI bot that sounds like an old lady, and it just keeps scammers on the phone. And it was like, whenever they're on the phone with this, they're not on the phone with an actual person. I
thought I heard that as well. I'm going to have to look that up. I'm definitely going to have to. I like that idea. But it's funny to hear hear them sort of like lose their mind. Anyway, you can search for that on YouTube if any of you are interested. There's some good stuff out there, and it's a good way of showing some of the social tactics that they use to kind of get into you. Because they tend to follow a script, the bad ones. The problem we have is we're now going into a time period of deepfakes and having to spot a whole plethora of new issues. How are we going to deal with this from a security awareness piece going forward? I think, I was just reading this morning, new deepfake engines. There was an Asian guy who he was kind of talking, and then he had this female version of himself, and it looked really convincing. There was a few little glitches I noticed, and he's just chatting away and he's pinching his face, and the AI is doing all of that. How are we going to have to migrate our security awareness to a new world where we have deep fakes, AIs writing phishing attacks? What are your thoughts on kind of where we're having to go? And I know that you do the group thing. So, Amy, tell me about the group awareness training stuff that you guys are doing and where you think that's going to go.
Yeah, so we do everything in groups because, like we were just saying, like Jemma was saying, doing it individually does bakes in the wrong behaviours to your security culture. So everything that we do is most of the things that we do is in person, in groups. It's immersive. It's like some of it's like 20 minutes, some of it's like 45 minutes, depending on which scenario you want to do. And it teaches the basics of security. I would always say it's never a replacement for like a whole security program, because no one product should ever be able to do that anyway. It needs to be, like you said, a defense in depth way of doing things. And I think that's quite a good way of looking at it. So security awareness should be a defense in depth strategy on its own. Instead of just saying we've got know before or whatever in, and saying, right, that's it, we've ticked the box on security awareness training. I think having multiple approaches allows you to reach more people and to be a bit more pervasive within the culture.
And do you think it's going to affect, because something else that you mentioned earlier on, the attention span, because you've got the group stuff and then short, sharp clips every now and then, rather than some, as Jemma said, a 20-minute sort of piece of CBT, which just drives you in. I mean, it drives me insane to do it. I'll be honest. I have to do it for my own compliance, and it drives me up the pole because it's so dry and it's just stuff that I personally already know. It would be interesting to get.
Yeah, well, I think like you said, that stuff is super dry, and I think people probably just click through to the end of it, or try and skip the video, or go and make a cup of tea and come back when it's one of them annoying videos you can't fast forward, and then just guess the answers to the questions. But I think most of the time the answers to the questions are always pretty obvious on those kinds of things as well, because they want to get a good pass rate. Because once you get a good pass rate, then you're compliant all of a sudden. But actually, have I taught anyone anything? Do they actually learn it? Do they know the answers really?
You're asking someone questions on something that you've just shown them. Like there's no retention test or like how secure are you? It's I just told you 3 pieces of information, answer a question on those 3 pieces of information. Which is not really much use to anyone.
It is a bit silly, really, isn't it? Again, going back, being a QSA, I've seen all kinds over the years, and some are engaging enough, some are slightly amusing, but a lot of them are dry, a lot of them are out of date. As you say, you can't just kind of go and buy a package and expect everybody to pass it. And if it's complex, and if it's too complex, people get frustrated with it because they're not getting the pass rate and they think they're going to get in trouble. What tactics do you see to kind of like placate individuals to actually do the training in the first place and not kind of completely outright reject it entirely? Because I have seen situations where you get a lot of employees do a wholesale, no, we don't like it, we've had enough, we're not doing it. And as the business owner or the CISO or somebody on the C-suite, you're in a really dangerous position at that point, because not only are you not going to meet your compliance obligations, let's face it, no one's going to do the test, but also the level of security is going to drop rather rapidly because people just get fatigued and they get bored of it.
C-suite equally as bad as staff, though. I mean, C-suite will have moved it, and what you do is marketing, right? You do what Amy said. McDonald's, you don't need to just do one type of training. You could do a workshop, a tabletop, an escape room, a CultureGem phishing thing. You do whatever you wanted to do, but as long as you're tracking that somewhere and you're able to say everyone's done something, and we're able to show positive metrics, we've had a downturn in incidents, we've had an increase in contact towards the security team or whatever that channel is, then that's enough. We don't need to just keep doing the training nonsense of annual 20 minutes over and over again. People aren't going to do it. Change it up and give people what they need in the moment. So use an escape room, use whatever it is, and have meaningful metrics, not completion rates, not phishing click-through rates. Like, look at holistic security metrics.
Mm.
And that's a really good point. I mean, what ROIs, if you're a CISO and you're looking to get some genuine feedback to go to your C-suite and say, hey, look, guys, we've got to up our game when it comes to security awareness. We've got to bring in Jemma, bring in Amy. We've got to sit down and work out a sort of a way forward with this, because yes, we're doing some phishing tests, and yes, we've got the CBT training, but we're not really getting a clear picture. What returns on investment, ROI key points would you recommend them to start tracking and looking be above and beyond the traditional ones which don't work anyway?
I think it's the stuff that Gemma's just said. They're looking at your actual security, your just general security metrics. I mean, you're never going to be able to, I guess, pinpoint exactly, much like marketing again, can never really pinpoint what the thing is that's changed those metrics, because there's lots of different factors in play. So, as long as you're seeing a general downward trend in terms of security incidents and a general upward trend in terms of, are people talking to the security team? Are we getting phishing reports coming through? That's the important stuff, rather than like phishing click-through rates. Yeah, I think if you do a phishing assessment, then we should be looking at who's reporting it. And in fact, doing an easy I saw this on LinkedIn the other day. Someone said, do an easy phishing assessment, and then people that haven't reported it, you can go and talk to them and say, why did you not report this?
It's very rare that people track that reporting, though, of the phishing. They don't care because they care about the click rate. Yeah. In marketing, we call it attribution modeling, right? It's like, you can't necessarily say that event or that advert attributed to that sale. But what you can say is, within that window of time, that person took that action. So the propensity was there, which meant that it's likely attributed to that. So if you can see that all of a sudden loads of people are reporting phishing emails, you could say that that's attributed to that piece of training. If you can see that policy violations are going down, you can say, well, in that 3-month period, we did a bit of training around, I don't know, acceptable use or whatever it is, and then attribute that activity to an increase in people talking to security team. And what you do want is more noise in the security team and less actual incidents or cyber events in the business. And that's how you can pitch it.
I like that, actually, because I mean, one of the big problems we have in InfoSec in general is being able to prove our spend. What we're spending, is it effective, is it efficient? It's easy to do it with tools, because you get now you get funky reports and all the rest of it. Half of them are complete meaningless trash, in my opinion, but you can get some. I like the idea of tracking engagement. How many times did we get engaged by the workforce over 2024? Okay, we released our new training. We did it in bite size. Created a plethora of different sort of methods of delivery, and so on and so forth. Now, what's our engagement factor? And I also like the idea of doing. It seems a bit counterproductive, but doing a few easy tests to see who reports and who engages.
Mm-hmm. Because the behaviour you want is the report.
Yeah.
So that can then help you pick out people that actually are engaged with security. So then you can start building that into a security champions program. So there's stuff that around human behavior within and security awareness in the company. It doesn't need to cost a fortune. It can be like some super simple things, like building in a security champions program. It doesn't really cost that much money. It's a bit of time, but it's not a mega expensive output. It's not like buying a new SIEM solution that's going to cost you £250,000.
Yeah,
which people are quite happy to throw the cash down for that. But when you say, shall we give some people some better training?
Yeah, I think as long as you define the scope really well, because where I've seen security champion networks fall flat on their face is where nobody's decided what that champion network is going to be accountable for, what you expect of them. And also, if you don't do that, it becomes a really expensive exercise to get this time in a room where we're going to have like monthly meetings with the Security Champions Network, and we're going to take all these people into a room and we're going to talk about things. Why? What's the point? What's the objective? And what's the scope of those individuals? What do you want them to do?
Yeah, I do think there's a lot of parallels between marketing and security awareness, because it is just a big communications campaign that you're running. So it's just looking at, how do people like to be communicated with? When should we communicate with them? What metrics are we tracking around that communication? So what's the engagement that we're getting back off of it? So yeah, I think security in general has a PR problem.
Definitely.
We've had a PR problem for 30 years, Amy.
Well, yeah, exactly. So it has a PR problem. So how do you fix that? Well,
Get a PR person in.
You get better marketing in place, don't you?
Yeah, it is interesting to see how the shift in, because I mean, I come from a time where most of the InfoSec people who've been around for as long as I have usually got in via IT. You know, and it's a very different mindset. And this is the other thing about security awareness, you know, looking at people's mindsets as well. You mentioned it earlier on, actually, the way that you train sort of developers and what have you, and the way that you train other people is very, very different. Well, you know, a lot of us old school, InfoSec professionals all come from kind of like the IT background. It's just where it originated from in many respects. But now I've met cybersecurity people who trained as lawyers. You know, I was just like, wow, okay, you know, got the law thing covered, because that's a big thing coming up. You know, what are the legalities of not doing security? You look at DORA, you look at NIS2, you look at, you know, some of the legislation that's coming out around, dare I say it, AI and some of the other stuff as well. We're going to have to box really clever when it comes to awareness, because how you deal with all of that is going to be very, very different. And that is actually, and it's a good point, I'm going to consider that one when I'm off camera, you know, getting marketing people who become InfoSec people. Because, Amy, you've got a marketing background as well, haven't you? Because I know Jemma has.
Yeah, sales and marketing.
So there you go. You can sell it and you can market it. Where do you think it's kind of going to go for the next generation? I mean, I'm seeing a lot more wargaming now, for instance, you know, training incident response teams. It used to be people would just sit there and go, yeah, I'll be part of the incident response team. And I suppose after the first few failures in incident response, you kind of get to learn. You know, there's a reason why military drill the troops. You know, they chuck them out in the middle of nowhere and say, you've got to survive for 10 days or get from this point to this point, and they don't tell them exactly where they're going. I've got military people in my company who do some excellent wargaming sessions, you know, and they do what they call injects, where they kind of inject different scenarios and change scenarios to see how fast people react. Do you see that as kind of like a key aspect of the future of InfoSec?
I think it needs to be. So I'm reading a really good book at the moment called Black Box Thinking, which is all about how a lot of it's about how the aviation sector learns from failures. But they learn from failures really bloody quickly. Because, but then they share that information with the wider sector. And I think it's something like the pilots get immunity as long as they've fully disclosed everything that they know about why the incident happened. So they've got a really open culture about talking about failures and accidents and why things have gone wrong. In the cockpit, they've got 2 black boxes, which is why the book's called Black Box Thinking. But they've got the one that looks at the technical side of things and looks at all the data and the whatever their systems are monitoring. And then there's one that listens to the conversation so that they can think about it from a behavioural perspective and how the people have reacted in that situation. And were they communicating enough? So it's something like, I think it was the United Airlines 173 crash. One in Portland, in Oregon, where the plane ran out of fuel and ended up having to land in the middle of the city and crashed into a lot of...
Yeah.
And I think it was 1978 or something like that. But that was super interesting because they listened to the black box. How more people didn't die in that plane crash is beyond me. But they listened to the black box and they just weren't communicating with each other properly. And that was part of the big failure. So now, if the plane's in distress, then the co-pilot and the pilot are constantly like shouting out, like, this is what altitude you're at, this is what speed you're running at, this is what the fuel level is, so that you can be more aware of what's going on. They've learned from that failure, yeah. So, and they've shared that information with each other. And I think we need to get better at knowledge sharing in cyber. So if you have an incident, we should be sharing the information that's come out of the back of that incident. Why are we not sharing that?
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, that's a whole podcast episode there. You know, it is difficult. Let's go quickly with DORA. You know, one of the key factors in there is communication. Now, in a commercial world, an organization doesn't want to admit its security failures. You know, it could go really, really badly with share prices. It's going to be a tough one. I mean, the whole comms aspect in InfoSec is tough in the extreme. What are you allowed to say? What can't you say? What are you going to be hogtied in saying? I mean, look at what's going on with the CISO from SolarWinds, you know, saying that he wasn't delivering the correct information to the shareholders. Well, he's not he's saying, well, I wasn't allowed to, I'm not allowed to do any of this. I mean, do you think there's a problem with open communication when it comes to security at all levels?
Yeah, I think there is, because I think there's a blame culture that goes on, and it's like people wants to get scapegoated, and that's not how it should work. If someone's discovered an incident, or even if they've been part of an incident, if they've been part of causing the incident, we should get them to fully disclose everything we know about it, because you'd fix it a lot faster. Your supply chain would be more secure, because actually you're going to sit there and go, guys, we fucked up. This has happened. Because getting breached happens to everyone, literally everyone. So it's not, I don't know why it's such a big deal. Why is it such a shame-focused thing? But it happens to everyone. So we all know it happens to everyone. So why do we play this blame game with people?
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then they've got the whistleblowers thing as well. It's like, that's an important aspect that I think's becoming more and more prevalent in modern. We always started to talk about security culture here. If you see something wrong, tell somebody about it. Don't just sit on it, which goes hand in hand kind of with the blame culture. I don't want to get blamed that I got somebody in trouble or lost them their job, or I don't want to admit that there's failures within the business. And weirdly enough, I think this is a key aspect of why you've seen the CISO function move from underneath IT and more push towards the kind of C-suite, because CISOs, even good, really good CISOs, have found their communications really hampered with the people who matter, which is the people at the C-suite and the shareholders, because then you get a situation like SolarWinds. As part of the security awareness training, do you guys think that it's really, really important to include reducing the problem with blame culture? You're not going to get blamed if you tell us about something. You are going to cop it if we find you didn't say something. Is that a central message that you guys sort of put into your programs?
Definitely. One of the first things that I do when I work with companies to change their behaviors and culture is I set up those communication channels and make sure that it's really, really simple. And there's like, what is it on the underground? It's see it, say it, sorted, or whatever it is. There's that tagline. So what's the tagline for your organization? What is the little number or whatever it is, the communication channel that is going to go straight through to cyber and be heard immediately without any blame? And I spend a lot of time with cyber teams teaching them how to deal with the people that are reporting stuff. I think when we spoke last time, Jim, we were talking about the first time cyber came at me, a security person came at me and was like, oh, you haven't considered this. And I didn't understand why I needed to consider that, because I wasn't in security. They didn't understand why I was doing what I was up to. And so that experience has shaped then what I do when I work with other companies, is to make sure that we're communicating, make sure that I'm talking to the board and I have a view of what's going to the board and what they care about. And one of the second thing I do is go and find out from the board, how do you want to hear this information? What is the way that you're going to digest it? Is it 800 words or is it a rag status? It's never a rag status. Never show anyone a rag status, because that doesn't mean anything. How do you want to visualize this in the 5 minutes that the CISO's got to tell you? It's as simple as that. Get your communications right.
I can't disagree with that. In all honesty, I think that's, it's a signature piece in my book, and the book's all around sort of like helping people understand what it is to be an InfoSec professional, what it's like to get into it. One of the key factors in there I mentioned is communication. Everything is down to communication. Learn how to do it for a start, and learn how to adapt depending upon your audience, which is obviously very key when it comes to security awareness. I mean, we're coming into kind of like the last few minutes of our time together. I mean, do you kind of want to just go over what you guys are doing, where to find you?
Yeah. So we offer security awareness training in the form of escape rooms. We also do incident response workshops with one of our partners. We've got Capture the Flags. We're just building out our digital platform now, so we'll have online escape rooms, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I think most people have probably seen some controversial post or another that I've stuck on there. So yes, that's where you find me.
And Jeb?
Yeah, so I work with companies to improve their cyber culture and maturity, and that's companies of all sizes. And we also have a security awareness compliance training where you choose how you want to learn, in what colour, in what voice, so it removes barriers to learning. And we've just launched our anti-simulation phishing tool, where you design the most convincing phish, as opposed to using your brain to try and spot a pattern to not click or report or whatever it is. So you try and phish your colleagues instead of clicking on stuff or not clicking on stuff. You can find me on most social platforms under CultureGem.
Fantastic. And I do suggest, if you are looking, we are going into a new financial year here in the UK and across Europe, and you are looking to change and work on your kind of security awareness programs, because let's face it, most of them are pretty stale. Maybe you should just reach out to Amy or Jemma, or just give us a shout and we'll point you in the direction where you need to go. Just have a chat. Can't hurt. Right. Thank you ever so much, Amy and Jemma, for coming and having a chat with us about that. I love the aspect that, we are now having to potentially generate a whole new generation of InfoSec professionals who specialize in marketing. I like that idea. I'm gonna think about that one and how to best put that across to customers. But thank you ever so much for your time. And for all of you out there, thank you ever so much for watching the channel and the podcast. We've had a massive increase in engagement and subscriptions. It's increasing exponentially all the time, like a snowball going down a hill. So thank you all for coming back time and time again. If there's anything you want us to talk about, or any guests you want me to interview, or subject matters you think that we didn't quite cover as much as we need to, possibly need to kind of re-engage with, please reach out. You can find us in various different ways. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find us on the channel. You can put a comment in. And please feel free to like and subscribe. And press the notification bell. It's always good, because we do get shadow banned occasionally, because we do talk about stuff that YouTube doesn't like us talking about that often. So yeah, we'll be speaking again soon, and I'll see you all later. In addition, I do have a book recently come out, the Cyber Sentinels Handbook, a primer for information security professionals. Now, this book is very much geared up towards professionals at all levels of their career, be they starters, be they newcomers, be they people who've been in it for a little while and maybe looking for a little bit more direction, albeit the older ones looking to maybe reground themselves in some of the more important aspects of the trade that maybe they've forgotten over time. I've had lots of good feedback from a lot of different readers of lots of different levels, so please feel free to get yourselves a copy. We've got the e-copy. We've also got the paperback copy. And if you don't want to spend any money, you can go on Kindle Unlimited and read the book for free there as well. So thank you ever so much again. Look after yourselves, and we'll be seeing you again soon.